Hi, I'm Bianca Coker from Region 10, and I'm here to talk to you today about one of our new math standards, 6-9C. This is in the expressions, equations, and relationships strand. 6-9C states that the student applies mathematical process standards to use equations and inequalities to represent situations. The student is expected to write corresponding real-world problems given one variable, one step, equations, or inequalities. All right, what that means is our students are writing problems given equations or inequalities. They need to be able to look at an equation or an inequality and interpret it. So let's look at an example. Here's the first example. -3 plus x equals 5. Here's an equation. Now, what's the right answer for this? Oh, there's about, I don't know, a million of them. Whatever your students can come up with that makes sense to them, that represents this equation in some verbal situation, that's valid. Yes, there are wrong answers, but there's a lot of right answers. Now, how would this be tested? I imagine they'd throw that equation up in the question stem, and then they'd have a whole bunch of answers, and they're going to have to look at those verbal expressions or equations and see which ones meet the requirements of this equation. Now, we don't want to start that way. We really want to start working with our students and having them come up with or create their own expressions that relate to their verbal representations of these equations. All right, so here's an example. The -3 plus x equals 5. We could say I owed my brother $3. That's that -3. But then I found money in my coat pocket. I don't know how much, he didn't say how much it is, so that's our x. So now I have $5. So that's a verbal representation of our equation, -3 plus x equals 5. The unknown amount is however much money was in his pocket. Now he has $5, so he's not in the negative, he's not in the red anymore. He actually has money to spend, because we all know that if you owe your brother $3 and you go around saying, I've got money, he's going to come get the $3 from you, right? All right, so that's an example of an equation. Let's look at an inequality. Suppose we're given -5n is greater than or equal to -20. So looking at this, we're going to have to find a problem situation where we have -5 times an unknown amount, and somehow that is expressed as greater than or equal to -20. I don't know. Here's an example. The lake levels are dropping 5 feet a year. The dropping indicates the negative. 5 feet a year or per year is going to be our coefficient on our unknown amount. In fact, we'll find out that's our rate of change, right? And then we'll have the other part of, because that's just an expression right now. The lake levels are dropping about 5 feet a year. The other part of our inequality is the second sentence here. How many years until they drop at least 20 feet? So dropping at least 20 feet is at -20, and at least is our verbal expression that relates to our greater than or equal to sign. All right? Does it make sense? So how do we do this with our students? Well, practice, practice, practice. Students need to do this. So have students practice writing equations and inequalities from verbal descriptions. That's probably the easiest way to understand or begin to understand those symbolic representations of what's happening in those verbal situations. Then have students practice writing verbal descriptions from equations and inequalities. You can have students do this in a variety of ways. There's a lot of fun things you can do. You can even have students write an equation down, trade their paper with another student, and the other student is having to write a verbal description to match that equation. Then you have your students think about the word patterns they're seeing. What word patterns, not keywords, are associated with certain symbols and certain numbers, right? So how do we do this? Well, for example, for equations, I know it's equal if it says something is something else, or this and this and this are the same as this and this and this, or was or same as. Those are the things that tell me equalities. The word patterns that tell me inequalities are words like at most, at least, less than, more than. Now those are the kind of obvious things, but be careful. This is one of the things that really tricks students up. If we teach them key words, words out of context, then a lot of times students see less than and they say, well, is that subtraction or is that the less than sign? More than has the same problem. If I have 3 more than she does, that means that I can add 3 more to what she has, or I might be using that greater than sign. So we need to be careful about saying things about keywords, and we want students to look for word patterns that they can associate with symbols. But warn them about, especially our English language learners, but everybody, about those problematic expressions like less than and more than, and help them understand how to translate those into symbols correctly, because they do tend to get confused. All right, that's pretty much it for the standard. Have a great day.